If you'd like, you can use Visual Studio Code as the interface that you've studied, because by now you should know it quite well. Things that you could talk about are how the icons are both consistent and a good real-world match, although you might wish to note that the account is at the bottom left, where most other interfaces have it at the top right, so that's broken external consistency. Having said that, it's a great idea to do a quick explore of the settings. And it's great because if we type in theme, Visual Studio Code actually has a large number of inbuilt themes. And this is a great example of our flexibility and efficiency. One good example of external consistency is that I do have the ability to drag a file into Visual Studio Code and it will automatically update. And things like PyCharm do this as well. One of the nicest things about Visual Studio Code is that if we go into something like our CSS, it's super easy to use. If I start typing a rule for my body, for example, maybe I want a background color, as soon as I start typing, it gives me a drop-down list, so I can just accept the suggestion, and then it goes on to suggest common colors that I've used before. If I want to change the color, of course, I can simply click on the square and choose another color. So these are all things that make my life as a user very easy. Likewise, in PHP HTML, Visual Studio Code will suggest variable names, which is another great example of recall versus recognition. If I do have a file and I try and close it without saving, we've got great error prevention because it asks if I'm sure, and in this case, I'm going to say don't save. And if you play around a lot with Visual Studio Code and you decide to refresh your extensions, you'll notice that we even have a tiny little loading icon that appeared, although you do need to know where to look to spot it. Just like other pieces of software, it's super easy to create new files. And in fact, all of the usual shortcuts that we'd expect work. And we have our list when we go into file that tells us what the shortcuts are. So for example, to make a new file is as easy as pushing Control N, and to close it is as easy as pushing Control W. It's also super easy to make new files from our Explorer panel and to make new folders where the icons that we have are really good real-world matches and are also consistent with other systems that we've seen.